Yo, yo, yo. What is going on, everybody? Welcome to the Around the 412 Fantasy Football Show. Another episode on this fantasy football journey of the 2021 season. I'm your host, Smitty. With me, as always, are my two co-hosts, Joe and Drew. What is going on, fellas?
What's happening, man? Greetings from San Antonio, Texas. We're living.
I know, not your normal setting.
Yeah, I know.
I know. It's a different background.
Aesthetic. You know, I got the upgraded suite. I went 10-2 this week, so y'all who bumped me up in the ranks. So I'm in the pad now, so that's no big deal.
That's where that's going. Okay. No, so for anybody that is watching on Twitter, if you're able to watch on Twitter, I know that it's been really weird with StreamYard right now, and I hope that they're able to fix it. Ever since that switch from like Twitter directly or Periscope to Twitter directly, it's been really weird. I know that you can't like comment there. So if you want to head over to YouTube to watch the show, please do so. YouTube.com/C/Around the 412 is where you can find this. That way you can interact with us and everything. While you're there, subscribe, hit the notification bell, leave us a comment, all that good stuff. But anyways, other than that, welcome to the show. Drew, I don't think you answered us. What's going on with you? You a little quiet down there. What's going on? You made a bad trade or? You made a good trade.
I made a great trade, actually. I'm feeling good, ready to roll. I'm hoping I get another win this week and take a bigger lead in my division because I'm strolling past. I'm getting crushed in our Dynasty League, though. Absolutely hammered.
I'm upset. I'm upset that I won. I'm tanking right now, and I'm for some reason winning a football game. I said I want to lose every game, but just get manager of the week, just consistently throughout.
You've gotten it every week, haven't you? Did you get it last week too?
I don't know if I got it this week though. After getting the win,
you did.
Oh, really?
I looked at it like 2:00. Yeah.
Well, there we go. All right. Optimal lineup.
I had worst manager of the week and he won, which makes no sense.
Worst manager of the week just means that you put in the least optimal lineup based on the players that you have.
I get it. Your team's deep. I get it. Yeah.
Super deep.
I'm 1-3. Do I trade A.J. Brown and Javonte Williams for Tyler Lockett? I also have Thielen and Boyd in my lineup and Michael Thomas on IR and Swift and Kamara as my running backs with Singletary also on my bench. That is a lot to digest, Ricky. I think you're 1-3, but I think that your roster is better than a 1-3 roster. Like I think that you're fine just staying true to what you have. I do not like that trade.
I'll never advocate for trading for Tyler Lockett. We all know how I feel about him. Especially those two pieces.
I would prefer if I was in the scenario that Ricky is in. Also, it looked like he had an awesome time in Green Bay from what I saw on Twitter. So, unfortunate result, but looked like he had a dope time at the Packers-Steelers game. So, that's super
Very
cool.
true. Yeah, he was texting me while he was there and stuff. Yeah, great experience. It's a shame they couldn't come away with a win, especially because I know the type of cash that it costs to go on that type of road trip to that stadium. So, but we do appreciate the question, Ricky, by the way.
Yeah, to the question at hand, I wouldn't add Javonte Williams to that trade. I think that if you're going to trade A.J. Brown, I think that Tyler Lockett is more than enough to get that done, 1-to-1. So I don't think you necessarily need to add in Javonte. You're in a tough spot because he hasn't done enough. But yeah, I don't know if Williams is the piece that I have. I mean, I get it as someone who's a 1-3 team. You're definitely looking to get a W this week. I feel like that you're right on the edge of that panic. I don't know if they've said anything about A.J. Brown in practice this week. I haven't seen anything yet.
He's not going to play.
No, you don't think so?
Not a chance.
I don't think so either. No.
Yeah.
I don't think Williams plays either. Titans are at risk for another bad loss this week.
How about that, dude? Losing to the Jets. Hey, shout out to Bill Cower, Billy from Crafton, calling that as his upset of the day on CBS.
They killed all my parlays. I thought it was an easy leg to just throw.
I know. I wasn't touching them covering, but I did have them money line as part of a 5-leg. Yeah.
Between the Saints losing and then the Titans losing, that killed about 1/3 of all survivor pool entries, across all survivor leagues.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Whoa, wait, what's going on here? Is this Platt's picks or something? What are we doing?
It's just a little taste. It's a little taste.
Tomorrow night, right here. Me and Ryan Platt's picks. But anyway, where do you guys want to start here? Oh, by the way, as always, the Fricker Ticker going at the bottom of the screen. Quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers, tight ends. We'll alternate which ones you're seeing. We don't normally touch on these a whole lot. However, I mentioned to these guys in our group chat today, like there's some very interesting ones. I want to say, even especially in the back end of the tight ends, just because of some matchups, like guys that you're starting to see creep up. I know Joe was like a week early on this Dawson Knox thing, so shout out to him for that. But yeah, he's he might be a little bit touchdown dependent. We're going to talk about that, but yeah, if you were able to grab him on the waiver wire, I know he was a hot commodity because of the matchup last week. He definitely paid off. So where do you guys want to start here? You want to talk about the injury roundup? Do we want to talk about the segment that Drew wanted to bring up about what do we do with players we're worried about, or where do we want to go?
Let's just crush the injuries. There's a few here of note.
Yeah.
Important ones too. We should probably knock that out for sure.
Okay, let's roll.
All right, so obviously the big one, David Montgomery, hit with a knee sprain. He fortunately did not tear his ACL. It looked pretty bad with that hyperextension. He's going to be out at least 4 weeks. He's probably going to be pushing 4 to 6. So Damian Williams is going to be a hot commodity on the waiver wire this week. I have him as my number 2 behind Donald Parham, of course. Shout out to Tyler on that one. We were talking a bunch last night about Donald Parham. I don't get it. What is left for him? Damian Williams is number 1 waiver wire ad. You can look at Khalil Herbert as well because Damian Williams does have I think he has a thigh contusion. But
yeah, I saw he tweaked something too because he had a little cue by him. Although it wasn't even like you didn't even say anything about it in the like the fantasy updates at least on Yahoo. It didn't even mention it.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's going to play. I don't think there's any concern there. But if he gets bumped, if he gets another hard hit and it knocks him out, maybe he could be a week early on Khalil Herbert. But that's a big deal. He was a top 10 running back, just like CMC. Another rough week with losing a big name. If you have a high priority in your waiver wire, you got to attack that. And I would actually lose a ton of fab this week. I was against Elijah Mitchell, but you're definitely going to get 5 weeks of a top running back, and he's going to get a ton of touches. So if you have the fab.
I am a Montgomery owner. This is a no fab league, right? And I also have a pretty low waiver priority. So I'm asking this for myself and also other people. Where do you pivot to if not a Damian Williams if he's not available? I mean, what other route can you possibly go?
Well, I mean, you're going to have to take it week by week, but you could start with Samaje Perine, considering Joe Mixon also suffered an ankle sprain this week. But he's a 1 week guy. It sounds like he's going to play next week. He might even play this week. The Bengals don't really talk a lot about their injuries. I mean, he went 7 weeks last year with a foot injury that no one had any idea about what it was. But it seems like this ankle sprain's kind of minor, so you might be able to have Samaje Perine for a week. And then, I mean, Khalil Herbert probably makes to you later in the waiver wire. You just try to hope that maybe committee. But
I don't think that I would I don't think I would use my claim on Herbert. I think that's somebody I would pick up like after the fact, like on Wednesday morning. I think to answer your question, Smitty, it really is going to depend on your record. If you have the capability to hold on, like David Montgomery really becomes like a playoff piece. If you're going to be struggling and fighting and getting into the playoffs, then you might have to just bite that bullet and try to make that trade. It's not something that you're going to want to do right now. You're going to want to scratch a claw, see if you can stick with it. If you can go 500 without like one of your better running backs, then that leaves you in a good spot for the stretch for the finish. But if you're on the outside looking in, you need to get wins sooner than later. You're probably going to get peak value for him like as you get closer to him returning. And they said it's going to be about 5 weeks. So I think Drew's right. You can say like, all right, like someone like Perine or like Evans from the Bengals. It's interesting with the Mixon injury. They're saying it's week to week, which, I mean, I'm more hockey than football. Like, oh, it's day to day now?
Yeah, they changed the day. So they don't tell you anything, but it's pretty safe to say that he's going to miss this week. So you got to take the week and just hope that maybe something else just presents itself.
Yeah, I got Montgomery in 2 leagues, by the way.
Yeah.
So luckily in the 1 league, I can just roll. I can move up Chuba Hubbard short term as my RB2 and then play like a Tyler Boyd as my flex.
So
or something like that.
I was going to chime in next. CMC's practicing tomorrow. There is a non-zero chance that CMC is back this week. I doubt it, but he is practicing and trying to give it a shot.
If if it were me, if it somehow broke that it was the CMC owner that got what's his face Williams, I would be trying to swing a trade that includes Hubbard for Williams, and then you're giving like an extra something to sweeten the pot. So it's like, all right, well, now I have my handcuff, you have your handcuff. They've both had their injuries, and now we're set. I don't know if they'll necessarily go for it, but that might be a route that you could consider as well.
True. Yeah. Okay, so moving along with the injuries here then, Drew, Logan Thomas.
So Logan Thomas has a hamstring injury. He's considered week to week. You know how this goes. Most of the guys miss at least 2 weeks. So with a thin tight end market, hopefully you can get a guy like Dawson Knox if you were ahead of the game last week. But he's going to be a hot waiver priority this week as well. You just got to hope for the best. But you're going to be without Logan Thomas for at least a couple weeks, that hamstring.
You know who's still out there in a lot of leagues right now? Dalton Schultz. I mean, this is a guy going back to last year when Blake Jarwin went down. He just looks like a really good athlete at the position. The target share, despite how crowded of a receiving room it is in, he's not hurt obviously by the fact that Michael Gallup isn't in the lineup right now either. Also, Amari Cooper's been dealing with a little bit of a rib injury. He has played, but he's not 100%. What do we think about Dalton Schultz?
I like it. I mean, I think that offense, there's so much upside. I think that it's a blessing and a curse. And you could say the same thing about Knox. They're not usually the path to being a top 5, top 10 tight end. It's either you're getting like 90 targets or you're getting 10 touchdowns. It's clear that they're game scripting Schultz into the game plan. So I think he is going to get some action. But when you already have Lamb, you have Cooper, Gallup's injury for as long as he's going to be out, I think that gives that extra bump in target share to Schultz. I think when Gallup comes back, then Schultz will take that back seat. But for the time being, teams are really focusing on Lamb. Cooper banged up. So I don't think the rest of the season he does as well as he did this past week, but I do think that he has some value, especially if you're looking for an answer at tight end. I think that it's definitely something that you should be looking into. But I don't know if I'd burn a waiver on him, but I would definitely consider picking him up going into this week. I think he has a nice matchup.
I think Dalton Schultz has been helped by the fact that Zeke is running the ball so well. What a change from the last 3 weeks when we were nervous about him. They're faking it to Zeke, and they're coming around, and Schultz is right there across the middle. He's getting a ton of targets. If Zeke continues to roll, that's going to continue to help Schultz as well. I'm actually a little concerned with CD the last couple weeks too. I mean, a lot of targets are coming his way, but he's not making do with those targets. So it's kind of concerning. Hopefully,
he was really the only one that didn't eat out of the Cowboys really offense in that game against the Panthers. I brought up Dalton Schultz because of Logan Thomas. He's still on the waiver wire in a lot of leagues. If you can get him as a couple week replacement for a guy like Logan Thomas, and we'll see, the production might end up outplaying Logan Thomas down the stretch anyways. We are obviously going to be concerned. You have to monitor what his target share looks like when a guy like Michael Gallup does come back. If we do see Amari Cooper get back to full strength, if CeeDee Lamb does become that part of the offense we expected him to. But still, I think for a couple weeks, he could do a lot worse than a guy like Dalton Schultz, who, if you're looking at the bottom of the screen right now, did come in at number 8 in our tight end rankings for the week.
Yeah, and if you look at what he did last week, he led their team in targets with 8. Which was 36% of the target share, and he's playing on 79% of the snaps. So it's clear that he can block well enough to be on the field. And then when they go into those play actions with Zeke, then he becomes an immediate option for Dak. So I think he needs to be started for now. We'll see how long that it lasts. But for now, I like what I'm seeing. I got to ride the hot hand.
Ryan says, Drew, I'll see you Sunday. Let's go.
Sounds good, brother. Excited. You guys see Smitty too?
Oh, is it? Oh, he's going to be at the game. I thought maybe you guys had a fantasy matchup or something in a league. I was like, okay.
For the Denver game.
Oh, word. Okay, cool. All right. And then the last one we got to talk about here is Jimmy G, the injury to Jimmy Garoppolo. Not just for Jimmy himself, but now with Trey Lance coming in, what does it do for the San Francisco offense?
So it actually just came out. I saw it on Twitter that Jimmy G might play this week. So this might not be as
What? Jimmy G himself said he was going to miss a couple weeks, didn't he?
Yeah, they're saying that he has a minor calf injury now, and there's a chance that he plays this week.
Okay.
I don't know what's going on there. You're not really concerned about Jimmy G in terms of his fantasy.
No.
But you can see if it's going to affect Deebo Samuel. Maybe Trey Lance will throw it to Brandon Ayuk more, but otherwise he's not in your lineup. So We'll wait and see on what the situation is with Jimmy G, but you can't trust a damn thing that Kyle Shanahan says anyways. You can block this out, right? I hate Kyle Shanahan for fantasy football. So,
I just don't understand, like, after seeing what Lance did last week, how could you just pull him off the field? Like, the offense looks so good. Every time that they need a touchdown, they take Garoppolo out of the game and put in Lance. And then they're like, okay, good job scoring. Never mind. Get back on the bench. Like, it's so weird.
Ricky says, do I start Ayuk if Lance starts? Drew's already shaking his head no, but here's what I want to do, actually. I'm going to say a player on that San Francisco offense, and you tell me if you would start them with Jimmy G or with Trey Lance. Both. So let's start with Brandon Ayuk, since that's the question. Are you starting him regardless of who the quarterback would be?
He had 9 targets in 4 games. 9.
Yeah, he just got dropped in one of the leagues that I'm in.
He doesn't belong on a roster right now. I'm holding him personally because maybe he'll boom at some point during the season. And I'm 3-1, so I have the opportunity to just keep that guy in the bench.
Right.
If you're hurting, he does not deserve a roster spot at this point.
I think what's surprising is that, like, okay, week 1 he had the hamstring injury. Week 2 they kind of brought him along. Week 3 I thought he looked really well, and it looked like he turned that corner and was about to like do his thing. I actually had him in a lot of lineups last week because it was like, all right, like there's been this progression. I'm feeling good about it. He's someone that I don't feel comfortable starting. I don't think that I'm going to need some more consistency from him, similar to someone like Allen Robinson, where it's like I know the talent's there. The opportunity should surface itself, but like I don't have the courage to just throw that guy in, hoping that they figure it out. Debo's definitely the guy to own for right now, and it would take quite a bit for me to put Ayuk in the lineup. He's only on the field for about 60% of the snaps. He's not getting the targets, and he's not the focal point for the offense. So, was his success last year a byproduct of Deebo Samuel's being out? It's looking like it might be so. Because that guy's balling.
Yeah, so here's my thing with it. I'm glad that Drew brought up, it should go, I guess, based off what your record looks like. Like if you have the ability to hold on to a guy like that. If you spent like a 5th or 6th round pick on him, it's just hard for me to justify dropping him, less than a quarter of the way through the season. But I mean, I get it if you need that spot, and you're getting absolutely nothing from him, but it's just, I'd have to be in a pretty tough spot where I'm either winless or got 1 win right now, and I really need somebody like a spark to drop a guy that I drafted that high this quick.
I'm holding him because I think that he has boom potential. You just never know when it's going to happen. So if I'm down big after the 1 o'clock games, I just need a Hail Mary. He's the kind of guy I might throw in my flex and just hope for the best. But the likelihood of it happening is so slim that it has to be on for a Hail Mary for you to put him in your lineup. So what's the point of having him on your bench if he's just taking up space?
Right. Okay. Moving along then, Deebo Samuel. With Trey Lance, do we start him? With Jimmy Garoppolo, do we start him? Does it not matter? We're starting him either way.
I think he's a top 10 player this week. He's absolutely balling right now. There's no reason that he shouldn't be in your lineup, regardless of matchup. Like the dude is playing that well right now. There's no circumstance, standard half full PPR. Like he needs to be in all lineups until further notice.
But okay, so which quarterback do you think gets more out of him, though?
Who gets more out of him? I think that Lance is a better QB. Garoppolo, like they're still. The thing with Samuel is that he has the potential to break any play for a touchdown, and he's been doing that with Garoppolo. Garoppolo doesn't really have that great of like depth of targets or anything like that. Trey Lance is going to be able to move the ball downfield a lot more, and also like the scrambling ability of Lance opens that big playability up as well. I think the ceiling is way higher with Lance, but we've already seen that he's done just fine with Garoppolo too. So that seems to be Jimmy G's guy, and I would start him with confidence regardless.
People forget that Deebo Samuel was last year's Brandon Ayuk. Most people were high on Deebo Samuel last year before he got hurt. The expectation is that he was going as a top 15 or 20 wide receiver, and then the injury happened and he was just forgotten about. I think that he's quarterback proof. I think people are just going to have to get used to the fact it's going to be Jimmy G. They said it today. If he's healthy, he's starting. I don't think it matters, though. No matter who's out there, he's getting the ball. He leads the NFL in receiving yards. He's getting a ton of work. He's making the most of it. You have to start him.
Okay, Kittle. with Lance, with Garoppolo, how do we feel? I mean, either way, you're starting George Kittle, especially with how thin tight end is. But which one is it better for Kittle's production to have?
I would say Jimmy G, honestly. They have this connection that they've had for the past few years. And I think Trey Lance is going to be more dynamic and throw the ball around more. And his rushing ability is going to take some stuff away from Kittle, obviously. But obviously he's a must start, like you said. So I don't think it matters. But I think that the most will come from Jimmy G.
Yeah, if you're a Kittle owner, though, which one would you want to have throwing the football?
In my opinion.
Yeah.
I just think Lance is going to do a lot more and go to different guys. He's going to run it. It's going to take the ball out of Kittle's hands. He's not getting the targets that he once was. I think that he's more of a safety valve for Garoppolo, and he's going to give him more work, even though it hasn't really shown up in the stat line besides 1 week, just based on their history.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that Lance is better for everyone in that offense. I think that Garoppolo sucks and that their offense is being held back by them, and that everyone would benefit from somebody that can throw the football.
Do you think
Jimmy G's doing the Eli Manning right now watching this?
That's fine.
What do you think
he's
Kittle
pretty
in pecking order, though, with Lance?
I mean,
I think he's the fourth option, and I put Lance himself above Kittle because I think that there's a better chance that he's running. And I think that Ayuk gets more work. I think that Samuel will get more work. I just think they're going to be throwing the ball downfield a lot more. I mean, Kittle does run some deeper routes for a tight end, but it's just I think that Lance is going to be looking outside more than –
right, but, I mean, Kittle plays every snap pretty much. He got 11 targets last week and only was able to catch 4 of them. So it's not like Kittle isn't getting the opportunity. It's just that Garoppolo sucks. And, Samuel is able to, get past the suckiness. But I think that, Trey Lance would elevate Kittle a lot. Even if he's getting less targets, I think he can do more with them.
Debo's stats are actually kind of inflated because he had 3 broken coverage touchdowns that were long.
Right.
So Kittle's he's quarterback proof as well. It's just that I think that Jimmy G will look for him more than Lance will.
So last thing before we switch segments here, then the running backs, whoever it might be, Elijah Mitchell, Trey Sermon, which quarterback being on the field would it benefit the running game more?
I mean, I think that's Garoppolo because because Lance has that running ability. You see it in the red zone that he vultures touchdowns there, which, I mean, that's where if you're someone like Trey Sermon, that's where he is going to get a lot of his points is within the 5-yard line. But if they're taking the ball out of your hands, a la Josh Allen, Lamar, Kyler Murray, then that's going to really hurt you from a running back perspective. But I'm surprised. I was advocating for dropping Sermon after what I saw last week. He played a lot better this previous week. So he had 19 carries, 89 yards. Who knows what's going to happen once they get some more people back. But, yeah, I think Garoppolo, just because he's not going to scramble one for a tutty, he's the better play for the running backs.
Yeah, I agree.
Drew, anything to add? Okay.
I agree. I just, as a fantasy owner, I want nothing to do with the 49ers backfield. You have to be desperate because you have no idea on any given.
Oh, I am.
Ball.
You're crazy.
Yeah, you can't.
No, I am. I absolutely am desperate.
You have David Montgomery in that league, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay, so now let's switch it up. Drew, you wanted to do this. Players we're worried about. I know that you put together a list that you wanted to ask just about players that we're worried about and see what we would do with them. So let's roll.
Yeah, so I'm going to start with one that not necessarily a worry. I just want people to be aware of. What do you guys think of Nick Chubb? Are you worried about Nick Chubb?
Short answer, no. But I understand why you put it on here because of Kareem Hunt's workload.
Is he a sell high?
No. I have to go on record and say this because Nick Chubb is my wife's favorite football player. That I have full confidence in Nick Chubb. So let me just get that on record. Yes,
bonus points.
Yes, Kareem Hunt is the pass catching back. Yes, Nick Chubb does not get the volume in the passing game. And Cleveland has actually struggled a lot in run blocking this year. I don't know if you've noticed
Yeah, what's going on? I mean, I
which
know
makes no sense to me. Baker
Jedrick
has all the
Wills hasn't
time in
been
the
healthy,
world, but yeah, it's very surprising. That being said, Chubb is still getting like an absurd amount of yards per rush. He is going to be the goal line back. I mean, they do have plays for Kareem Hunt in the red zone, but they're both top 10 running backs at this point. It would be very hard for me to let go of Chubb in my lineup. The ceiling isn't maybe as high as Kareem Hunt, but Chubb has the floor, and you know that he's going to get the work, and you know he's going to get the job done, and he's probably not going to say a word about it, and you're never going to hear about him, but, like, the dude eats, he stays on the field, and he's a dog. Like, so it's less than ideal maybe in a full PPR league because the targets are just such easy points, but I think there's something to be said about, like, his consistency and his work, and, like, how many times have you seen Chubb have, like, a 5-point game? Like, it just doesn't happen.
I think that, if you drafted him in that first round, maybe like 8th overall, 7th, 8th overall, you could be a little discouraged with the lack of boom, but you can't be upset that he's not going to have like any weeks where you have a bust.
He's touchdown dependent though as an RB1. I feel like there's other guys you could get for him in trade in that range that have more boom potential.
We'll see, and I'd be interested to see what that would look like.
12 points a week if he doesn't score.
But to your point, so in PPR, Nick Chubb is currently ranked 13th, right? And as far as stats, like he only has 3 touchdowns. So I don't agree with that. Like if he's touchdown dependent and he's 13th, like I get some people have been injured, but
Kareem Hunt's?
Huh?
You just said Kareem Hunt though, didn't you?
No. Nick Chubb. Like Nick Chubb only has 3 touchdowns on the year. He's running back 13. Kareem Hunt's 8. So it's like obviously from a PPR perspective, like Hunt is benefiting from that, and he also has
look at the 2 weeks when he didn't score a touchdown though, because the touchdowns that he scored were stacked up. So he's looking at 8 points and 11 points. That's not okay for an RB1. That's my argument.
That's PPR.
Yes.
But if the worst score that I'm going to get from a player, if his low score for the year is 8 points,
that's solid though. But he's your RB1. That's my.
And that's why I said, like, if you drafted him 8th overall, you might be a little disappointed with the lack of boom, but you're never going to be disappointed that he's going to completely bust out.
But don't you want more out of an RB1?
But what does that mean? Like,
so look at some of the guys that are. Would you rather have Alvin Kamara or would you rather have Nick Chubb?
I mean, Kamara, of course.
Kamara.
I mean,
yeah, but Kamara was going as 3.
Get Alvin Kamara right now and trade for Nick Chubb because he's been bad.
No, you wouldn't make that trade. No one would make that trade.
I think you can get him. What's his rank right now? Kamara's.
Kamara in full PPR?
Yep.
Let's see. Kamara is 15. Chubb is 13.
Okay. So that's a fair trade based on that. There might be
I guess
do that. Would you rather have Kamara? That was just an off the head try to think of someone. Would you rather have Nick Chubb or Saquon Barkley before this week's boom?
Saquon.
You could have got Saquon last week for him.
But those are all players that like pre-draft we had ranked higher though.
There's guys that if you just give me some time to like think about it, going down this list. We'll come back to it. I'll give you guys another player and I'll look.
Okay.
What about Miles Sanders?
No, not the chicken, man. He's been terrible. They don't like him.
Are you dropping him based on the draft?
Dropping?
No, I can't. I can't drop him. He's the starting running back. I can't get rid of that.
You can't drop him, but Ryan with some phenomenal input on Miles Sanders here.
Must not be a Penn State fan.
No, Miles Sanders is always the guy that I avoid in fantasy. I think he's super talented, but it's just for whatever reason Philly never gives him the rock. Like They always have like a Boston Stott or now it's a Kenny Gainwell handcuffed to him that they're using way too much. Like, and I like Kenny Gainwell. Like, I just feel like, why are you adding him if you have a guy like Miles Sanders who can do it all? So nothing against Kenny Gainwell here, but like Miles Sanders there for whatever reason, just always limiting his touches. And now they're not even using a running back really at all. Monday night game against Dallas, 3 touches.
And he had 20 some yards too. That's the crazy part. It's not like he doesn't do anything when he touches the football.
Yeah.
But
so he's not a guy that I can drop. I'm frustrated, but not with him. I'm frustrated with Philly's usage of him.
For sure. No. But it's like, Drew, to your point, it's like someone that got drafted around like the Chubb tier, guys like Mixon, Gibson, Taylor. I would take Chubb over all of those guys.
I think, Mixon's tough because Mixon was tearing it up before that injury.
I think that Taylor's going to come on too. I think it's just a matter of time.
I don't. Marlon Mack went from inactive to touching the ball like 34% of the time.
Because he asked for a trade and they were trying to keep him happy. I believe
there's people that cover the Colts saying they're like showcasing him or whatever. We'll see.
James Robinson, okay, is higher ranked and scored more points than Nick Chubb this season, and he was completely useless in week 1 and 2. I'm a huge Chubb fan too. I rostered him, and I would love to roster him. My point is that you have him as an RB1, and if he doesn't score a touchdown, he's getting blown out by majority of other running backs in a week because he has no passing game usage. Like, he has to have Derrick Henry 150 rushing yard games to make him 100% useful on a week in, week out, unless he scores a touchdown. And that just concerns me. I'm not trying to knock Chubb in any way. I'm a huge fan of his as a player, but like, that's definitely concerning to me. And the way Kareem Hunt is coming on, I think that's going to get worse.
So let me hit you something real quick. And this goes into what Platt was just asking about in the chat. So the most predictive statistics related to running back success are touches inside the 5-yard line, and
unless you're Clyde Edwards-Helaire,
which is fair, or like your snap count, like you got to be on the field. So those are like your 2 most predictive things. So to Platt's point, Taylor is leading the league with 7 attempts, which is 2 more than the next closest, which shockingly is James Conner and Mark Ingram. But the next tier of guys, Derrick Henry, Nick Chubb, Ezekiel Elliott. Kareem Hunt has 3.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just like I feel good about it. It's like if
they're alternating series, just like the Saints did with Mark Ingram and Alvin Kamara two years ago. And if they don't get into the red zone with Chubb's series, that's what happened against the Vikings.
I don't know. It just feels to me, it's like Chubb is a person that I can put in my lineup and not have to worry about him doing nothing, like regardless of who the matchup is. Yes, like maybe he's not going to have like a 40-point week ever, but I don't think that's a knock on him. I think it's just how do you construct the rest of your lineup, because then you can be more creative with like your receivers. Like, it's nice when everybody booms, but having a high floor, I think there's something to be said, especially when you get into like playoff situations.
Well,
and stuff like that.
let's leave off with this because we've talked a lot about Nick Chubb. Then I want to move on to a different player. Maybe next year, assuming that we see this exact same usage for both these guys, knowing that they're both going to be there next season, we start talking about Nick Chubb as an RB2 as opposed to an RB1.
Yeah, and I think he was drafted as an RB2. I don't think like some people might have waited because they went receiver early, but I don't think like he wasn't in that top tier of full PPR running backs. I mean, no one was doing that.
I was saying not to start Nick Chubb, obviously. It's just that it's something to be concerned about, that if he's not scoring touchdowns, he might not be a top 20 or 25 running back on a given week if he doesn't score. And that's concerning. That's all. That's all I'm trying to point out. I don't think people are picking up on that. Yeah. We can move on then. What about Juju? Are you guys holding Juju?
How bad is Ben's hip? Because that would be immediately stock up for Juju. I mean,
as I say, are we talking better or worse if we see? Hey, I noticed on our top 10 rankings, why wasn't Ben Roethlisberger on our quarterback rankings here? This is a little
that's tough.
No, but with Juju, that's a tough. That's very tough, actually. We expect Claypool to be back this week. Deontay Johnson's clear cut the number one target in Pittsburgh. Like, not even a question. I don't even know who's number 2 right now in targets on the team. Is it Claypool or is it Juju?
Probably Juju, just because Claypool missed the week.
Yeah.
But I can double check.
I'm just thinking because Juju didn't play a lot was at Cincinnati, so I didn't know if it was probably pretty close, even with Claypool missing a game.
Let me see. I'm missing someone.
With his route tree, it's very worrisome about what he can produce.
Is it him or is it the way that he's being utilized? I mean, that's the question. It just seems like Pittsburgh has turned him into a running back.
Yeah,
Chase is definitely the number 2, by the way. He's averaging 9.7 targets a game. Juju's averaging 6.8.
Yeah. So there's definitely nobody that's starting Juju right now. The question is, should he be on rosters? See, I think it's tough because think about it. Like, if he's on your roster right now, but I brought up a situation like Robbie Anderson was dropped in the league. Brandon Ayuk was dropped in the league. Would you rather drop Juju and pick up one of those guys?
They're basically in the same tier right now. Juju's wide receiver.
They are, but do you have more faith in their situations and those guys picking it up, or Juju
had 11 targets last week?
Yeah,
it was very.
Yeah, Matt Roll and Joe Brady said we're going to start getting him the ball, and they threw him 11 times the next time they could.
I'll put it on the board right now. He scores at least 20 points this week. Robbie Anderson.
Why didn't you have him in your top 10 receivers?
Because there's going to be 10 more guys scoring more than points.
Yeah, it's tough. I actually have been starting Juju. There's a league where I am undefeated, and I took both Kelsey and Waller. And
Do you get fantasy points for TikToks?
No, unfortunately not. Otherwise, I'd be extra undefeated. But yeah, I mean, I don't think you can play him. It's obviously, it's hard to watch. Watching the Juju games. I think if I didn't watch Steeler games, I probably would cut Juju. But knowing that he had 2 touchdowns that were just
he on his own is doing fine. Like, there's nothing that he's doing wrong right now.
But the route tree is tough. The quarterback play, dummy tough. Tough. I like it. I would probably hold, but yeah, a couple more weeks of this, it's all right, I gotta let it go. And I love the guy too. It makes it even harder to do. I don't know.
I'm trying to think where I'm at with it. Obviously, like I said, he's not in any of my lineups right now. I don't have him on a roster, but he wouldn't be in my lineups right now if I did.
If you need the roster spot, I don't know how you hold him. I don't.
Yeah, and it's I'm in a league that you only keep 4 bench. There's 0 chance he'd be on that.
Say you have number 1 waiver priority this week.
Oh.
And you need David.
And I need, yeah.
Are you cutting Juju?
Yeah, assuming he's the most. I don't know who my other options would be to cut, but probably, yeah.
Yeah. So if there's someone that's out there that you would want, then I think Juju's out.
Yeah. Sucks to say, but
yeah.
All right.
What about Mike Davis?
Oh, brother. I have him in 2 leagues. What Cordero Patterson, what are we doing in Atlanta? Arthur Smith, you're killing me here.
Looks confusing.
Another guy, it's hard because running backs, we know how valuable they are. Even a guy like Mike Davis, you're probably drafting in round 6, 5, 6.
Right.
He was one of those.
You went 0 running back or 0.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we talked about him a lot with the 0 RB strategy. He's another. I feel like Juju was a borderline cut, but I feel I just feel bad because it's nobody that you're saying is a guy that I'm getting rid of. I can't get rid of Mike Davis. I just can't do it.
And it's so weird because it's he got 60% of the snaps. He had 13 carries, but then he's so ineffective. He had 14 yards on 13 carries. And then Patterson comes in, and every time he touches the ball,
well,
the gold.
Yeah, that's the thing is when he came over from Carolina, we saw not necessarily a traditional between the tackles runner, but we were just hoping the work in the passing game would negate that. But if you have a guy like Cordero Patterson coming over too, and he's taking that away, what exactly is Mike Davis for that offense?
I don't
I'm
know.
holding on to him just because like he's my third running back, but
He's still dominating the snap count. That's why I reached out to you guys. I think Cordell Patterson is a sell high. He scored 3 touchdowns on 11 touches, and he only had 23 snaps. But he consistently keeps doing this week in, week out. He has to regress to the mean at some point.
Here's what blows my mind about Cordell Patterson is that the dude gets like barely any work and does all of this stuff. But then you look at Kyle Pitts and he has like the Julio syndrome where he's in the red zone and they can't like throw him the ball accurately at all ever. That's like, oh, Patterson's open or like not even. And then he like mosses somebody and gets like this most ridiculous thing ever. Like it's just, I don't understand it. It's like you have Ridley who's doing the work and they're not getting him the ball in the end zone. You have like this amazing rookie tight end that you're like, oh no, Matt Ryan's good enough. We don't need a new quarterback. That backfired. But then it's like Matt Ryan can't get him the ball in the red zone. It's like, oh, but Cordell Patterson? Oh yeah, that's the guy. It's just football's stupid.
It's fluky and it can't be sustained. That's why I'm just like, if you can trade him right now.
Then now is the time. After what he did last week, yeah.
If he was on my roster, I would reach out to anyone in my league and be like, do you want Cordell Patterson? All of them.
Send the best offer.
Yeah.
All right. Next.
Oh, while we're on it, he's on my list, Kyle Pitts. He's tight end 18 on the season. What are you doing with him?
I can't. There's no way I can get rid of him. Tight end is so thin. Like he's a guy that we expect is gonna first year tight ends. Like I think that people might have had too high of expectations coming in. Like 4th overall pick. I understand that he is kind of a unicorn. Like he's just going to be another receiver, not really a tight end. But like that transition period obviously still taking place for him. Joe mentioned like Julio syndrome he has right now. He's going to figure it out. I tried to buy low on him this past week. He's still on the field for like over 80% of the Falcons plays. So
yeah, his target share is so good. It's just Matt Ryan is doing very much like a Ben, like he's really showing his age right now, and it's killing Ridley, and it's killing Pitts as well. It's just I don't understand, and it's just he's doing all the right things. The touchdowns I think are going to come. I don't think he finishes outside of the top 10 just out of sheer volume.
Both buy lows, Ridley too. You should be making offers for both of those guys.
Yeah. Give me Calvin Ridley too. I have Ridley in the league, but if I could get him in more, I'd definitely take him. All right, next.
What about Bobby Trees, Robert Woods?
Hey, he scored a touchdown last week.
Yeah, he did get a touchdown.
Yeah.
He scored a touchdown. The Rams lost. Coincidence?
Did you watch the game?
Mm-mm.
I missed it.
So Robert Woods, it was not going well all game. He was throwing his hands up in the air, kind of showing up Stafford. He was very frustrated with his usage. I think he's droppable at this point. Or maybe trade him and throw him
droppable.
What if your team name is Bobby Tree Smoke Shop?
Then you keep him, obviously.
All right, cool.
Yeah. I think you should try to put him in as a trade piece with something else. Because you can't depend on this guy because he looked like Juju throwing the iPad on the sideline last week, but he was on the field.
I would be throwing that iPad too. That's like $2 million he threw down the drain because he couldn't throw him that ball.
Robert Woods has trouble. He's not even getting looked at. We talked about this last week. Cooper Kupp's the guy. And I think that maybe someone will see that touchdown. It was garbage time. They were just throwing it, and it was a wasted score. It was padding the stats.
It's just crazy that like he's on the field just as much as Cooper Kupp, but then Cooper Kupp gets double the targets. Like he's clearly the superior option in Stafford's mind, which is interesting. I know we talked about it before, but it was the Bobby Trees show in preseason. It was like, oh, it looks like Stafford has his guy. It's Robert Woods. And then regular season start, and they're like, gotcha. And now it's not. So
yeah, I'm giving it a little bit more time. I can't do it.
It's so hard, but
my receivers in that double tight end team, Bobby Trees, Juju Smith-Schuster.
Oh man,
you throw in Allen Robinson, you got a trifecta.
I tried to get a trade for him last week. The guy wanted Waller. He was gonna give me Pitts for Waller and Robinson. I was like, no.
You dropping Allen Robinson?
I can't.
No.
I can't do it.
He's
I mean-
wide receiver 62.
I think if
Hey, how about Darnell Mooney with Justin Fields
Yeah,
last week?
Yeah.
120 some yards, 5 catches, he looked good. But I think Robinson had some flashes though last week where it was like there was a couple crossing routes that he had, made some really nice catches. Fields was much improved. I still think that you can buy low on Robinson, but you can't drop him just yet. If you're in a situation where you're losing, you might have to make that trade, but I wouldn't give him up for free. Someone will take him, and if he gets dropped, someone's going to pick him up, so you can get something for him.
We got more?
Yeah. Julio Jones. What are you doing with Julio Jones?
Praying that he gets healthy.
Yeah, I got him in the lead right now. I got him in an IR spot. I'm definitely not dropping him.
Wide receiver 66 on the year.
Yeah, and it's kind of interesting too because I think everybody thought that Tannehill was going to take this step forward and really be like the sexy QB pick that Stafford really has showed up to be. I mean, granted, it's hard when you have like guys from the XFL as your starting receivers, but Jalen Hurts did it last year. But yeah, I don't have I have more confidence in Juju than I do in Julio right now. I just think that offense is going to run through Henry. Henry's getting so much receiving work now that it's just like, why would you not feeding that guy? Because every time he touches the ball, good things are happening. So it's weird.
Hey, though, a third of the games that Julio has played this year, he's had over 120 yards. Doesn't that make it sound better? Doesn't that make it sound better?
It does. It does.
No, but I'm holding on to Julio.
Yep. What are you doing with Myles Gaskin?
Who?
Myles Gaskin.
Is he on an NFL roster? No, I'm kidding.
He was still being started in a lot of leagues coming into this week. They were probably zero RB league teams, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't seem like the Dolphins have a big future in him. I thought he would at least have the receiving work in like a PPR scenario, very similar to Mike Davis. It just seems like he doesn't have the talent. Team's kind of moving on from. It's like Malcolm Brown. Like they're like, we need to get Malcolm Brown more work, and we know what Malcolm Brown is. So it's like to lose out in that battle, that's tough.
It's the thing is he doesn't have a touchdown yet. Malcolm Brown only has 4 less touches, but Gaskin's averaging almost 5 yards a carry. Like if he just had some type of volume, that would be a great number. But he doesn't.
Yeah,
142 yards on the season.
That's light. He had 2 carries last week for 3 yards.
Yeah, I would probably just cut him. If he turns it around, happy for the person that was willing to pick him up and hold on to that. But it's dead weight. Unless I'm undefeated or like 3-1, it's like, all right, like we got to move on. Get all of that bad energy off of my bench.
He was started in 47% of leagues last week. He's still owned in 94% of leagues.
I think there's just people are so
Yeah, he was getting drafted the way he was, and
he was falling in the draft like he was starting as like a 5th or 6th round pick, and then by the time right before the first week of the season, he was down to like the 8th. So it was like, oh, maybe there's like a value play there, but yeah, it's not looking good for him.
I got one more for you guys. So he had 2 boom weeks in weeks 1 and 2. Weeks 3 and 4, Tyler Lockett back to his old self. Are you getting worried that he's going to be more bust going forward?
he's absolutely going to be, but he still should be on a roster.
Yeah. Are you starting him?
Yeah.
Yes. I'm starting him knowing what the floor could be. But again, it goes back to like the roster construction thing. Like you just have to accept that might be the case that week. But he could also be your highest scoring player by a wide margin.
I think the problem, it really isn't Lockett, but they only threw the ball 23 times last week. Yeah. So him getting 5 receptions out of that, like it's not terrible. It's just if Seattle's going to win, like if you think Seattle's going to have like a pretty good game and he becomes very touchdown dependent, like you're hoping that like he breaks that big play. If they're going to be in a game where they're like not favored or it's going to be a shootout, then it's like, all right, like Tyler Lockett's probably going to go off. But if they have the lead, they're running the ball. They're trying to get the clock to 0 as fast as they can.
Yep.
So I don't think there's a scenario where I cannot play him, but he's not going to put up the numbers he put up in week 1 or 2. I think he falls somewhere in the middle.
Is he matchup dependent then?
Is he what?
If they're playing a team that they're going to blow out, are you worried that if he doesn't get the scores early, then?
Unlike Mike Tomlin, I don't live in my fears, so no, I'd probably still play Lockett.
I like Cortland Sutton over Tyler Lockett. I saw that. I like Cortland Sutton over Tyler Lockett. And that's without Drew Lock, though. Let's be clear on that.
I mean, Cortland Sutton had 8 targets and only caught 3 passes.
But also, Drew Lock played majority of that game. He's obviously quarterback dependent, but I think he's the guy there.
I mean, yeah, for sure. It's the Sutton and Patrick show until Judy comes back, if he comes back. But I would take
Tim Patrick. He's going to be the guy against the Steelers this weekend. By the way,
I'm going to be watch. He's going to be too scared to catch the ball.
You said that was the last one, Drew.
I actually have one more. Just
okay.
Kind of got brought up there. I didn't have him on the list. Are you worried about Chris Carson after this week?
Well, I better not be, because that league where I have David Montgomery, he's my other starting running back.
Collins took over this week a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, you're totally right on that. So Chris Carson played 45% of snaps, got 14 touches. Alex Collins had 12 touches. He was on the field for 39%. Because Collins was more effective. He had 78 yards and a score. Carson had 31 yards. I think, to me, like, to answer your question before, Smitty, you were saying, like, all right, like, we know that Williams is going to be a number 1 ad. Collins might be my number 2 this week. Well, I would say probably P. Ryan is going to be my number 2. And then Collins would be a number 3. We don't know if the shift is going to happen, if they're going to move away from Chris Carson, but we've seen in the past that Seattle will run with the hot hand. They're not afraid to overrun guys, and even if they have an equal timeshare, I mean, that's a good pick to have, like, as like a lottery ticket at this point. Pretty much all the guys that we've talked about that have been struggling, it's like I would probably take the chance, like, to say, all right, Alex Collins, let's go. Let's see what you got.
I hate it. Okay. The last thing that I want to bring up then is the thing that Joe, you put out on our Twitter today, if you want to kind of explain to people what's going on here. So let me pull it up for the people to see.
Yeah, good deal. All right. So pretty much what this is a weekly matchup chart. So if we're looking from left to right, the team on the left, this is all showcasing fantasy points allowed. So if we're looking at the week 4 information, so this was last week's charts. This was showing that Tampa Bay had the worst total defense in the league. They were giving up 104.7 points in PPR. And then you can see the breakout for each position, and then you can see who that team is playing this week. So in this example for last week, so it was a great matchup for Mac Jones, and then it was a pretty tough matchup for Dak Prescott. Obviously, this doesn't say, like, okay, you should bench Dak Prescott because he's playing Carolina, but it does give you some good indication that, hey, like, this is a tougher matchup relative to the rest of the league. If you have players that are maybe like a fringe starter, then it's like, all right, like, maybe I don't want to put them in. But that doesn't mean that Dak is going to be the 32 best quarterback going into a given week because of that.
You're right. So you put the new one out today, though, right? Yeah.
Yeah, that's the new one for this week.
Bam. There it is. Okay.
Yeah. So now what we can see, and this is the reason why I look at the data this way, is that you can see that there's already been a shift in just from the first couple of weeks in the season going into week 5. And somewhere where I've talked about this a little bit, which they're still showing as a positive matchup, but it's the Baltimore Ravens. They're like 2/3 of the way down. They have a big green spot in the tight end position. They're giving up 18.7 points per game currently in the last 3 weeks versus tight ends. But who have they played so far this year for Baltimore? They've played Travis Kelce. Week 1, they played Darren Waller, who when he had his 19 target game. They played Hawk, and they shut Hawkinson down. And then last week, Noah Fant had like 6 catches, 50 yards, and a touchdown. So it's like they've pretty much run the gauntlet of all good tight end players. And as we move through time, if you look at like an ESPN or a Yahoo, they're going to say, oh, Baltimore is the 32 ranked defense in the league against tight ends. but really it might have just been you're playing the best tight ends in the league and you're disadvantaged for that.
Mhm.
So as we're going through the season, these charts continuously get updated so that if there's injuries or if there's changes to personnel or if there's things that are happening, you can see what that shift is on a week-by-week basis. So you can kind of jump on the wave and say, all right, like all of a sudden Washington is our worst defense. Look what they're giving up 50 points a game. They're giving up a lot. If you are in a 2-quarterback league or if you're in a situation where your quarterback is hurt, maybe Jameis is a good dart throw to look at for this week. Or if we're looking at like tight ends, for example, Houston's been awful against tight ends. That's why Hunter Henry was in my top 10 for this week. That's why I put Dawson Knox as a top 10 play last week because of his matchup as a tight end. It wasn't necessarily like, I think that he's the greatest football player that's ever lived, but relative to his peers, they were pretty strong against wide receivers. They were bad against tight ends. So if they can get the chance, then that's going to bode well for them. So that's something that comes out every week on Tuesday. I have a spreadsheet that kind of like pulls all the numbers from fantasyfootballtoday.com. And then the other thing I will say is as we get into bye weeks, I manually do the effort to say like, all right, the last 3 games that were played so that you have 3 weeks worth of data. And yeah, like you said, so green is good matchups, yellow are average matchups, red are tougher matchups. And that's just relative to the points that were scored. So that doesn't mean if you're looking at the chart that you should bench Patrick Mahomes this week against Buffalo, but temper your expectations if you're expecting him to have a 6-touchdown game, which he might. But if he has like an average performance, then it shouldn't be that surprising because Buffalo's been amazing against fantasy quarterbacks this year.
Yeah, I didn't totally fade Mahomes, but I think I have him as QB5.
Yeah, he was 8 for me this week just because of the matchup. So.
Mm-hmm. Came in overall as 4. So, but anyway, this is really good stuff, Joe. So like he said, this comes out every Tuesday via Joe, and big shout outs to Joe for doing this, and shout out to Drew, by the way, for when we decided to start doing the show. He said, "Hey, you got to reach out to Joe and get him involved too." So great addition. What an asset Joe's been for the show, huh? Even look at this PPR, half PPR, standard, unreal.
Yeah, we do it all. So. Yeah, so that's a really good tool for me. We'll have the stuff relative for the targets coming out later tonight. I've been out of pocket today just from travel. So I'll get that stuff sent out. And then, as always, pretty much every week we've been talking about like different options for like defensive and kicking streaming options for the week.
Yep.
So I like the
Well, actually, hold on. Let me pull that back up then because you could even look at this a little bit too. Right?
Oh, for sure.
Like that.
Yeah, and I think something to caveat there, and I always get shit for this, is that the defensive scores don't necessarily reflect what they look like in my league. But this is just based off of the settings that are used from the website. So don't think about this as, like I'm locked in for 9 points with the Detroit defense because Minnesota is giving up 9 points per game in this format. But relatively speaking, that's just a good comparison. So it's like, Detroit is technically a good matchup against Minnesota. You have like Cleveland and Denver against the Chargers and the Steelers. Houston against New England. I don't know if I would necessarily play any of those, but yeah, it's definitely another tool that you can use for that. Like for example, as Kansas City has a plus matchup for Buffalo, I wouldn't have the stones to play Buffalo against the Chiefs just because that offense is so prolific. But if I'm thinking about, all right, what do I got for like some different streaming options this week? I like the Raiders. I think the Steelers have a bounce back week for the Broncos. I've been seeing them get dropped. I think a lot of it has to do with TJ Watt being out. There's a lot of holes in the middle of the offensive line. Sands, Alu being out, and then Tuitt still being out. So the Steelers are getting run on quite a bit. But I would say you got the Raiders. I imagine that the Ravens are probably rostered, but the Colts have been somewhat decent. And then even though they did lose to the Jets last week, the Jaguars are such a dumpster fire that I would still feel comfortable running the Titans against the Jaguars defensively. From a kicking perspective, I think Nick Folk has another solid week for the Patriots. You could see somebody like Joseph from the Vikings against the Lions. I think that's a pretty high-scoring game. And then Sanders from the Buccaneers. So those are a couple ones that are on my radar. But Yeah, we'll keep it moving. We'll keep that stuff going. And then if there's other things you have questions about, or if as you're looking at this stuff, it can definitely get confusing if you're not looking at it all the time. Feel free to reach out to us via Twitter. We're happy to get those questions answered. But a lot of these tools that we're sharing that's at least how I'm helping whenever I'm looking at like people asking questions and asking about lineup decisions. Like this is the kind of data that I use.
Good thing you said question. So to wrap up, we got a question coming in here as a buzzer beater. Ricky Duncan, do I start Sanders at wide receiver and Javonte at flex if AJ Brown can't go? I have Higbee also.
Is this Emmanuel Sanders, I'm assuming?
Yeah, I would. Yeah, Sanders at wide receiver.
Yeah, I mean, so Emmanuel Sanders has been pretty solid. So if you're looking at like his snap share, target share, like all that stuff, he's pretty much the number 2 behind Diggs. He's kind of taken over not that he's taken over the Cole Beasley role, but he's definitely getting utilized more than Cole Beasley. So I think that he has a pretty solid floor there. Javonte at the flex, last week was the first week that he had more field time than Gordon, but it was like a 51-49% split. I think that backfield continues to be a split. I do think that Higbee has a good matchup this week. I just don't have enough confidence in the volume that he's going to receive to throw him in my lineup as a flex option. I don't think that anybody that is less than like it would have to be hot. The only tight ends that I would feel comfortable flexing would be Waller and Hawkinson, if you somehow had Kelsey as well, or if you had the 2 of them or something like that. That's pretty much about it for me. I would find some other options. Thinking about it from like what the stats are for this week, I'm not sure what the Javonte matchup. I don't think that it's necessarily that great for the Steelers. Their biggest weakness, let me see. Let me pull it up real quick.
I think the Steelers are going to make it a point to stop the run this week because if Drew Lock's playing, I don't think that they fear him too much. And Melvin Gordon and Javonte Williams, if you look at their scoring line, they're like the biggest 50-50 split I've ever seen. Gordon week 1, or take out his long touchdown, 8.9, 8.4 for Williams. 15.1, 14.1, 8.7, 8.9.
Right. I mean, you can't take out people's big plays because then nobody would have points. Right. But, I mean, I agree. You're banking on that happening for you to have a good week.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I guess that's the nice thing about being your flex play is that you're hoping for the big play. They have like somewhat of a floor. But the Denver backfield is I'll kind of wait and see unless that's like a desperation play. I think that there's some better options probably. So I would say start Sanders, probably consider someone else for my flex. I wouldn't play Williams. I think the Steelers defense is strong enough that they're not going to give up the big ones, even though they've been getting run on a little bit more since Alu went down.
I'd play Williams over Higbee, though. I mean,
yeah,
I think we all would,
absolutely.
But we don't know what the other options are there.
See what it's like tomorrow. I'll be shocked if someone gets dropped tonight with
exactly
guys that are getting dropped. You could get a nice desperation play. I wouldn't be shocked if Robbie Anderson comes out there in a lot of leagues, and I would start him over those guys after his 11 targets.
Mm-hmm.
They have a good matchup as well.
Or like someone who's probably on waivers that I would feel better about in the flex would be like a Jamison Crowder. He got a lot of work for the Jets, so you could look at someone like that.
He's probably available.
Yeah.
He had like 7 receptions on like 9 targets last week in his first game back.
Always a great budget player. So Ricky has a claim in for Damian Williams, so hopefully he gets him, and this is a moot point, this question.
Right, yeah.
But okay, anything else then?
I have one service announcement. Stop using waiver claims on defenses and kickers. The amount of stuff on Twitter, like, stop it.
Assuming that your waivers don't reset every week.
Yes. Okay. But if you have like the 3rd waiver priority or the 4th or 5th, do not get a defense. Just let them clear.
There it is. I think we say it every week, but
yeah.
All right. This episode has been brought to you by Well Grade Hemp Cream. Not really, but I just had that sitting here. No free ads.
And armor.
However, if somebody does want to sponsor us, please reach out at AT412 FF Show or at Around the 412 or at Joe FRK or Drew Hannes. I don't know if there's underscore there. I can't remember.
That's right.
Or Zachary Smith 412. As always, I'll say it. You can reach out to us, of course. Sunday mornings we'll be very active before you guys set your lineups. Of course, you're gonna have players going. Actually, a good Thursday night game this week, by the way. Seattle, LA. So that should be a lot of fun. So reach out to us with any lineup questions. Hopefully, it's not just something like, "Hey, should I start Matthew Stafford or Aaron Rodgers or something like that?" But reach out to us with any lineup questions you have. We'll do our best to answer them. We'll go by Joe's data that he gives us on a weekly basis. Other than that, thanks again for tuning into this episode of the Around the 412 Fantasy Football Show. Good luck this weekend. We'll talk to you next week. Bye-bye.
Good luck, guys.